It was the kind of morning that felt heavy, even before I opened my eyes. The weight of my family's disappointment, a familiar shroud, pressed down on me.
Failed, they'd said.
Not just about a project or a test, but about my entire life trajectory. My sister, Sarah, always the golden child, had even brought her latest triumph to the dinner table last night, a casual mention of her new connection, a state senator, no less. And then, at that very table, I heard those words, "Madam Vice President," directed at me by someone who knew Sarah, but clearly didn't know me at all. It was a bizarre, almost surreal moment, a complete disconnect from the reality of my supposed failures. If you've ever felt like the world was against you, like every step you took was scrutinized and found wanting, then you understand a sliver of what I felt. But if you also believe in something more, something beyond just chance, if you believe in good gestures, in the quiet power of kindness, and in the undeniable force of karma, then this story is for you. And if you're here, watching this, it's because deep down you're a good person and you know there's more to life than what meets the eye. So, if you support that, if you believe in the ripple effect of good deeds, please take a moment right now. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? Let's build a community of people who believe in making the world a better place, one story at a time. My name is Amelia, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the quiet one, the dreamer, the one who didn't quite fit into the mold my family had so meticulously crafted. My older sister, Sarah, on the other hand, was everything they wanted. Bright, ambitious, effortlessly charming. She sailed through life, collecting accolades and connections like others collect stamps. She was their pride, their shining example. And I was Amelia, the one who spent hours sketching in notebooks instead of studying balance sheets, the one who found solace in old books rather than networking events. Our parents, bless their hearts, meant well. They truly did. But their definition of success was rigid, unyielding. It was about prestige, financial security, and a very specific kind of upward mobility. My chosen path, a burgeoning career in nonprofit work focused on community empowerment, was, in their eyes, a detour, a hobby, anything but a legitimate career. "When are you going to get a real job, Amelia?" my father would ask, his voice tinged with a mix of concern and exasperation. My mother would simply sigh, a sound that spoke volumes of her worry for my future. Sarah, of course, echoed their sentiments, albeit with a more polished, sympathetic facade. "Amelia, darling, I just worry about you. It's so competitive out there. You deserve more stability." She'd say this while perched on our expensive sofa, sipping artisanal tea, her designer handbag casually tossed beside her. It wasn't malicious, not exactly, but it was certainly patronizing. It was the constant, subtle reminder that I was lagging behind, a perpetual underdog in a race I hadn't even realized I was running. The dinner last night had been particularly brutal. It was a rare family gathering, ostensibly to celebrate my father's promotion. Sarah had brought along a new acquaintance, Senator Davies, a man whose reputation preceded him. He was a rising star in state politics, charismatic, intelligent, and seemingly at ease in any company. My parents beamed at him, obviously thrilled to have such an influential guest at their table. Sarah, naturally, was in her element, engaging him in a lively discussion about policy and public service. I, as usual, found myself receding into the background, content to observe, to listen. I'd offered a few quiet contributions, mostly on the social impact of certain legislative initiatives, but my voice seemed to get lost in the more authoritative tones around the table. At one point, Senator Davies, his gaze sweeping across the room, landed on me. He paused, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. Sarah, ever quick to fill any silence, had interjected, "Oh, that's my sister, Amelia. She's finding herself." The dismissive tone was subtle, almost imperceptible to anyone else, but it landed like a punch to my gut. Then came the moment that still replayed in my mind like a broken record. Senator Davies, after a brief, polite nod in my direction, had turned back to Sarah, his voice smooth and confident. "So, Sarah, with your impressive background, Have you ever considered a run for public office? Perhaps, Madam Vice President. The air crackled. My parents gasped, then chuckled nervously, clearly flattered by the suggestion, even if it was just a passing thought. Sarah blushed, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "Oh, Senator, you're too kind," she demurred, but her eyes gleamed with ambition. And then, he had looked back at me, a genuine, warm smile replacing the previous one, his gaze surprisingly direct. "Madam Vice President," he repeated, but this time it was unmistakably directed at me. The question hung in the air, a bewildering, almost absurd pronouncement. The table fell silent. My parents exchanged confused glances. Sarah's smile faltered, replaced by a look of utter bewilderment. I felt a jolt go through me. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Had he mistaken me for someone else? Was he joking? The senator, however, held my gaze, his expression unwavering, almost expectant. It was a moment of profound disorientation, a complete shattering of the narrative my family had so diligently built around me. Me? I managed to stammer, my voice barely a whisper. He simply nodded, a knowing glint in his eyes. And then, before anyone could react, the conversation shifted, whisked away by Sarah's quick recovery and a new topic. But the echo of those words, "Madam Vice President," lingered, an unsettling, intriguing melody in the cacophony of my supposed failures. The next morning, the memory of that bizarre interaction gnawed at me. I tried to dismiss it, to rationalize it as a momentary lapse, a misdirection on the senator's part. But it clung to me, a tiny, persistent spark of curiosity in the gloom of my self-doubt. I spent the day trying to focus on my work, organizing a community outreach program for a local food bank, but my mind kept drifting back to Senator Davies's words. It was so out of left field, so utterly unaligned with my current reality. What could he possibly have meant? I decided to confide in my closest friend, Liam. Liam was a pragmatic, no-nonsense kind of person, a journalist who had a knack for cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of things. We met at our usual coffee shop, a cozy little place with mismatched furniture and the scent of roasted beans lingering in the air. "You're telling me," Senator Davies, the Senator Davies, looked at you, Amelia, and said, "Madam Vice President?" Liam asked, a look of incredulity on his face. He took a long sip of his coffee, his eyes narrowed in thought. I nodded, feeling a blush creep up my neck. I know. It sounds ridiculous. Sarah was there, my parents were there. They all looked at me like I'd grown a second head. I thought maybe he was confused, or maybe it was a joke that went over my head. Liam leaned back, crossing his arms. Senator Davies doesn't strike me as the type to make random, confusing jokes, especially not in that kind of setting. He's meticulous. Every word is calculated. He paused, then his eyes lit up. Unless it wasn't random at all. Unless he knows something you don't. My heart did a little flutter. What could he possibly know? That's what we need to figure out, Liam said, his journalistic instincts kicking in. Think, Amelia. Have you ever met him before? Even briefly? Through some volunteer work? A conference? I racked my brain, going through every interaction, every event, every meeting I'd ever attended. No, I said finally, shaking my head.
Never.
I've seen him on TV, read articles about him, of course. But I've never been formally introduced, not even informally, before last night. Liam mused. This is interesting. Very interesting. What was his demeanor when he said it? Was it a question? A statement? Was there any irony in his voice? It felt like a statement almost. And there was no irony, not that I could detect. It was a certainty almost. I tried to recall the exact expression on his face, the tone of his voice. He seemed to genuinely mean it. And then he just moved on. Like it was completely normal to say something like that to me. Liam tapped his fingers on the table. Okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to do some digging. I have a few contacts in political circles. Maybe someone knows something. And you, he pointed a finger at me. You're going to keep your eyes and ears open. Don't dismiss anything. And if you happen to run into Senator Davies again, try to engage him. See if you can get him to elaborate. I felt a surge of nervous excitement. It was illogical, I knew, to read so much into a single, perplexing comment. But Liam's conviction, his genuine curiosity, was infectious. It pulled me out of my usual cycle of self-deprecation and regret. For the first time in a long time, I felt a tiny flicker of something akin to hope, or at least intrigue. Over the next few days, the incident became a quiet obsession. I found myself replaying the dinner party scene in my head, analyzing every nuance, every facial expression. My work with the food bank, usually a source of immense satisfaction, felt a little distant. I was there, sorting donations, coordinating volunteers, but a part of my mind was constantly sifting through possibilities, trying to piece together the puzzle of Senator Davies' words. My parents and Sarah, bless their oblivion, seemed to have completely forgotten the bizarre interaction. Or perhaps, more likely, they had dismissed it as a momentary eccentricity on the senator's part. Sarah was too busy basking in the glow of her perceived connection, already envisioning herself at the senator's side at future political fundraisers. My parents were simply relieved that the family dinner had concluded without any major Amelia-related faux pas. Liam, true to his word, began his investigation. He called me a few times, his voice filled with a mix of frustration and excitement. Nothing concrete yet, he'd report. Everyone I talk to says Davies is a straight shooter. No known history of odd remarks. But there's a buzz around him. He's definitely on the fast track. He'd ask me more questions, trying to glean any detail I might have overlooked, any fleeting glance or whispered word that could shed light on the mystery. One afternoon, while volunteering at a local community center, a familiar figure walked through the doors. It was Senator Davies, accompanied by a small entourage. He was there for a press conference, a routine visit to highlight a new initiative for youth empowerment. My heart pounded. This was my chance. I tried to appear casual, busy with my tasks, but my eyes kept darting towards him. He moved with an easy confidence, shaking hands, making small talk, his smile seemingly genuine. As the press conference concluded, and he began to make his way out, I knew it was now or never. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, trying to catch his eye. "Senator Davies?" I said, my voice a little shaky. He turned, his gaze meeting mine. For a split second, I saw a flash of recognition, a subtle softening in his expression. "Ah, Amelia," he said, his voice warm, surprisingly so. He extended his hand, and I took it, feeling a jolt of surprise at the firmness of his grip. I just wanted to say, it was a pleasure meeting you the other night," I stammered, feeling utterly awkward. He chuckled, a low, pleasant sound. "The pleasure was all mine, Amelia. You have a keen mind, and a very important perspective." His eyes twinkled. "Did my comment confuse you the other night?" My cheeks flushed. "A little, yes. I confess, I was quite surprised." He nodded slowly. "I imagine you were. Sometimes the truth can be unexpected." He paused, then leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "Amelia, I have a proposition for you. Something that might seem unconventional, even a little out of your comfort zone, perhaps. But I believe you possess a unique set of qualities that are desperately needed." My mind reeled. A proposition? What could he possibly mean? My heart began to pound even harder. "I'm forming a new advisory council," he continued, his voice calm and persuasive. "It's focused on community-based solutions to systemic issues. We need people with boots-on-the-ground experience, people who understand the real challenges faced by everyday citizens, not just theoretical policymakers. And I've been observing your work, Amelia, your dedication, your quiet strength. You have a remarkable ability to connect with people, to understand their needs, to build bridges where others see only divides." I stared at him, speechless. He had been observing my work? My little, seemingly insignificant efforts at the food bank and community center? It felt surreal, like a scene from a dream. "I understand this might seem sudden," he said, a gentle smile playing on his lips. But I assure you, my offer is sincere. We need your voice, Amelia. We need your empathy, your vision. Will you consider it? My mind raced, a whirlwind of disbelief, excitement, and a healthy dose of fear. This was completely unprecedented. My family, with all their talk of my failures, would be utterly flummoxed. Sarah would be beside herself. I would be honored, Senator. I managed to say, my voice still a little breathless. Thank you. I need a moment to process this, of course. He smiled warmly. Take all the time you need. But know that I have great faith in your abilities, Amelia. More than you might realize. He handed me a business card with his private number. Call me when you're ready. And with a final, reassuring nod, he was gone, leaving me standing there, a jumble of emotions swirling inside me. The walk home was a blur. My head was spinning. An advisory council? Senator Davies had been observing my work? The implications were staggering. It wasn't just a proposition. It was a validation, a recognition of the very work my family had so casually dismissed. It was a beacon of light in the fog of self-doubt. I called Liam immediately, my voice still trembling with a mix of excitement and disbelief. He listened patiently, then let out a triumphant whoop. I knew it. I knew there was something more. Amelia, this is incredible. This is exactly the kind of thing Senator Davies would do. He's known for seeking out unconventional talent, for valuing real-world experience over just pedigree. But why me, Liam? I asked, still struggling to comprehend it. Amelia. I don't have a fancy degree from an Ivy League. I haven't worked on political campaigns. I don't have a network of influential contacts. Because, Amelia, you have something more valuable, Liam said, his voice firm. You have integrity. You have a genuine desire to help people. You have empathy. And frankly, those are qualities that are in short supply in the political arena. Davies isn't looking for another clone. He's looking for someone who can offer a fresh perspective, someone who isn't afraid to speak truth to power. He saw that in you. His words were a balm to my soul, a counter-narrative to the years of subtle denigration. I felt a surge of strength, a quiet determination beginning to bloom within me. This wasn't just an opportunity, it was a chance to prove, not to my family but to myself, that my path, my passions, were not failures but strengths. The next few days were a flurry of activity. I researched the advisory council, devoured articles about Senator Davies's past initiatives, and began to formulate ideas for my potential contributions. I decided to keep the news to myself for a little while, to savor this moment of personal triumph before exposing it to the inevitable skepticism of my family. When I finally told my parents, their reaction was predictable. My father furrowed his brow. An advisory council? What does that even mean, Amelia? Is it a paid position? What exactly will you be doing? His questions were laced with thinly veiled suspicion, as if anything outside the realm of traditional corporate employment was inherently suspect. My mother, ever the worrier, wrung her hands. Oh, Amelia, are you sure about this? Politics can be such a messy business. Are you certain you want to get involved with all of that? Sarah, of course, was the most outwardly dismissive. An advisory council? Really, Amelia? It sounds like a glorified volunteer position. I'm sure Senator Davies just said that to be polite. He probably says it to everyone who expresses even a passing interest. Her tone was light, airy, but her eyes held a distinct glint of condescension. She couldn't fathom that someone like me could genuinely be approached for something so significant. Her senator friend, after all, was her connection. I felt a familiar sting of frustration, but this time, it was tempered with a newfound resilience. I explained calmly and patiently the significance of the council, the impact it could have, and the senator's genuine belief in my abilities. They listened, but their skepticism remained palpable. It was clear they couldn't quite reconcile the Amelia they knew, the one who failed, with the Amelia who had been approached by a rising political star. I decided not to press the issue. Their understanding wasn't a prerequisite for my participation. My own belief in this opportunity was what mattered. I called Senator Davies's office and formally accepted the offer. A few days later, a detailed brief arrived, outlining my responsibilities, the scope of the council's work, and the schedule of our first meeting. It was all very official, very real. The first meeting of the Advisory Council was held in a stately government building downtown. I walked in, feeling a mix of nerves and exhilaration. The other members were impressive: a respected urban planner, a renowned sociologist, a seasoned community organizer, and a couple of influential business leaders who had a track record of supporting social initiatives. I felt a little out of my depth, surrounded by such accomplished individuals. Senator Davies greeted each of us personally, his warmth and sincerity immediately putting me at ease. When he introduced me, he didn't just list my nonprofit work. He spoke about my unwavering commitment to grassroots initiatives, my deep understanding of human needs, and my unique ability to foster collaboration. His words resonated deeply, a stark contrast to the narrative I'd grown accustomed to hearing about myself. During the meeting, I found my voice. Tentatively at first, then with increasing confidence, I shared my insights, drew upon my experiences, and offered practical solutions to the challenges being discussed. To my surprise, my contributions were not just acknowledged, but genuinely valued. The urban planner leaned forward, taking notes when I spoke about the specific housing challenges faced by the families I worked with. The sociologist engaged me in a thoughtful debate about the efficacy of certain outreach programs. It was invigorating, exhilarating. I felt truly seen, truly heard, for the first time in a professional setting. Over the following months, the Advisory Council became a significant part of my life. I dedicated myself to it, pouring my heart and soul into the work. I still maintained my full-time role at the food bank, but the council offered a new, broader platform to advocate for the issues I cared about most. I traveled to different communities, met with diverse groups of people, and helped to shape policies that had a real, tangible impact on their lives. My family, meanwhile, remained largely oblivious, or perhaps deliberately ignored the full extent of my involvement. They still saw me through their preconceived notions, their Amelia who failed lens. Sarah would occasionally ask, in a tone that implied she was merely humoring me, "So, how's your little council going, Amelia? Still playing at politics?" I would just smile, a quiet satisfaction blossoming within me. Their skepticism no longer stung. It simply highlighted their limited understanding. One evening, after a particularly productive council meeting, Senator Davies pulled me aside. "Amelia," he said, his expression serious, "I'm incredibly impressed with your work. You've exceeded all my expectations. Your insights have been invaluable, and your dedication is truly inspiring." My heart swelled with a quiet pride. "Thank you, Senator. It's been an honor to be a part of this." He nodded, then paused, his gaze thoughtful. "I have something else to discuss with you. Something even more significant. I've been approached to consider a run for the U.S. Senate. And if I decide to proceed, I would want you by my side. Not just as an advisor, but as a key member of my campaign team. We're talking about a significant role, Amelia. One that would put you squarely in the public eye." My breath caught in my throat. The U.S. Senate? A key campaign role? This was a leap, a monumental one, from advisory council member to the heart of a national political campaign. My mind raced, envisioning the intensity, the scrutiny, the sheer scale of such an undertaking. It was daunting, terrifying, and undeniably, incredibly exciting. "Senator," I began, my voice barely a whisper. That's an immense honor. I don't even know what to say." He smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes. "You don't have to say anything now. Just consider it. Think about the impact we could have together, the good we could do. I believe in your potential, Amelia. I believe you have the strength, the intelligence, and the compassion to navigate this path. And," he added, his voice dropping slightly, "I believe you are exactly what this country needs." I left that evening feeling completely overwhelmed, my thoughts a whirlwind of fear and exhilarating possibility. This was no longer just about proving myself to my family. It was about something far, far bigger. It was about stepping onto a national stage, about contributing to a cause that truly mattered, about leveraging my skills and my passion to make a difference on a grand scale. The decision weighed heavily on me. It meant a radical shift in my life, a plunge into the tumultuous world of national politics, a world so far removed from my quiet, community-focused existence. I spoke to Liam, who, after picking his jaw up off the floor, became my sounding board, helping me to analyze the pros and cons, to understand the sacrifices and the immense potential. "Amelia, this is huge," he kept repeating, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and concern. "Are you ready for the relentless media scrutiny? The attacks? The public life?"
I knew he was right to ask.
The thought of being constantly under the microscope was terrifying. But the alternative, the thought of letting this extraordinary opportunity slip away, felt even more unbearable. I thought about the families I'd worked with at the food bank, the countless individuals whose lives were shaped by political decisions made by people who often lacked real-world understanding. I thought about the potential to truly amplify their voices, to advocate for systemic change from within the system itself. And then I thought about Sarah and my parents, the narrative they had built around me, the failure narrative. This wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of more, that my quiet dedication could blossom into something truly impactful. I called Senator Davies a few days later. "Senator," I said, my voice firm with resolve, "I'm in." His immediate chuckle was warm and genuine. "Excellent, Amelia. I had a feeling you would be. Welcome to the team." And so, my life took an unexpected, exhilarating turn. I immersed myself in the campaign, learning everything I could about political strategy, communications, and public engagement. I quickly discovered that my experience in community organizing, my ability to connect with people from all walks of life, and my genuine empathy were not just assets, but crucial skills in the political arena. I found myself thriving in the fast-paced, demanding environment, drawing upon a reserve of strength and resilience I hadn't known I possessed. My role on the campaign team grew rapidly. I started as a policy advisor, but my responsibilities quickly expanded to include community outreach, public speaking engagements, and even media interviews. I was no longer just the quiet observer. I was an active participant, a visible voice in the campaign. Senator Davies, true to his word, trusted my judgment, valued my input, and consistently pushed me to step beyond my comfort zone. He was a remarkable mentor, recognizing and nurturing potential in a way no one else ever had. The campaign was intense, a whirlwind of travel, late-night strategy sessions, and endless public appearances. There were moments of doubt, moments when the sheer scale of it all felt overwhelming. But every time I felt a flicker of uncertainty, I remembered the faces of the people I was fighting for, the real impact our policies could have on their lives. That commitment, that unwavering belief in our cause, kept me going. As the campaign gained momentum, my public profile grew. I was featured in news articles, interviewed on television, and became a recognizable face alongside Senator Davies. It was surreal, seeing my face on screens, reading my name in print. My family, of course, couldn't ignore it any longer. My mother called me, her voice a mix of awe and bewilderment. "Amelia, I just saw you on the news. You were so articulate, so confident. I can't believe it's really you." There was a hint of pride in her voice, a tentative shift in her perception. My father, ever the pragmatist, was more focused on the practicalities. "So, this is a full-time job now, Amelia? Is it secure? What about your benefits?" His questions still revolved around traditional definitions of success, but the underlying tone was no longer one of judgment, but rather a grudging acceptance. Sarah, however, was a different story. Her initial reaction was a thinly veiled attempt to claim some credit. "Well, of course, I introduced you to the senator, didn't I, Amelia? I always knew you had it in you, somewhere deep down. You just needed a little push in the right direction." Her attempts to connect herself to my rising profile were almost comical. She'd bring up my appearances in conversations with her friends, subtly weaving herself into my success story. But beneath the surface, I sensed a simmering resentment, a disquiet at my unexpected ascent. It was as if my success, unbidden and unpredicted by her, disrupted her carefully constructed narrative of our sibling dynamic. As election day drew closer, the campaign reached a fever pitch. We were crisscrossing the state, holding rallies, meeting with voters, and tirelessly making our case. The polls were tight, every vote crucial. I was exhausted, but exhilarated, fueled by the unwavering belief in our mission. On election night, we gathered at the campaign headquarters, a cavernous hall buzzing with anticipation. The results trickled in, precinct by precinct, a nail-biting, agonizing wait. The atmosphere was electric, a mixture of hope and anxiety. As the final results were tallied, a roar erupted through the hall. Senator Davies had won. He was the new U.S. Senator. The victory speech was a blur of flashing lights, thunderous applause, and heartfelt emotion. Senator Davies stood at the podium, his voice strong and clear, thanking his team, his supporters, and then he paused, his gaze sweeping across the jubilant crowd, finally landing on me. And to my incredible campaign manager, my trusted advisor, and my dear friend, Amelia. She came to this campaign with an unwavering commitment to public service, a passion for justice, and a heart full of compassion. She is a force of nature, a true leader, and I am honored to have had her by my side. Amelia, please come up here. My name echoed through the hall, amplified by the speakers. A wave of stunned silence rippled through the crowd, then erupted into cheers. I felt a lump in my throat, my eyes welling up with tears. I walked towards the stage, the path illuminated by the camera flashes, the roar of the crowd washing over me. I saw my parents in the front row, their faces a mixture of shock and profound pride. My mother was openly weeping, my father had a rare, genuine smile on his face. And then I saw Sarah. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with disbelief, her jaw slack. The smug condescension was gone, replaced by a raw, unadulterated shock. I reached the stage, and Senator Davies embraced me, a genuine, heartfelt hug. He then turned to the microphone, his arms still around my shoulders. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice ringing with pride, "I am not just honored to introduce you to the future, but to someone who I firmly believe will one day stand on an even grander stage, serving this nation with distinction." He looked directly at me, a profound warmth in his eyes, and then, with a mischievous grin, he leaned into the microphone and said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room, "Madam Vice President, perhaps?" The crowd roared, a wave of laughter and applause washing over us. I felt a profound sense of exhilaration, of vindication, of overwhelming joy. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph, a direct echo of that bewildering dinner party remark, but this time it was not a question of confusion, but a declaration of potential. The man who had seen something in me when no one else did, had just given voice to a dream I hadn't even dared to whisper to myself. The days following the election were a whirlwind of celebrations, interviews, and the beginnings of strategic planning for Senator Davies' term. My role on his team continued, albeit with an elevated title and increased responsibilities. I was now his chief of staff, a position of immense influence and trust. It meant navigating complex political landscapes, managing a diverse team, and advising the senator on critical policy decisions. It was demanding, relentless, and utterly fulfilling. My family's perception of me had undergone a seismic shift. My parents, once consumed by worry about my unconventional choices, now beamed with pride. My mother would frequently call, her voice bubbling with excitement, recounting conversations with her friends about Amelia, the chief of staff. My father, who once questioned my financial stability, now offered unsolicited advice on political strategy, as if he had been a political strategist all his life. It was amusing to witness, and surprisingly, rather heartwarming. Their approval, once desperately sought, now felt like an unexpected bonus, a gentle confirmation that they finally understood. Sarah, however, remained a more complex case. Her initial shock had slowly morphed into a grudging respect, laced with a persistent undercurrent of envy. She would often try to engage me in conversations about politics, attempting to showcase her knowledge, sometimes even offering unsolicited advice, as if she were still the elder, wiser sister. "You know, Amelia, I heard Senator Davies speaking about that bill. You really need to make sure he emphasizes the economic impact. That's what voters truly care about." It was clear she was still trying to position herself as superior, but the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. I would listen patiently, offer a polite nod, and then calmly steer the conversation back to more substantive matters, or simply excuse myself to attend to my duties. The unspoken truth was that I no longer needed her validation, or anyone else's. My confidence had grown, rooted in genuine accomplishment. My relationship with Senator Davies deepened into a profound professional partnership and a true friendship. We spent countless hours together, debating policy, strategizing campaigns, and sometimes simply sharing quiet moments of reflection. He continued to be my most ardent champion, consistently pushing me to expand my horizons, challenging me to consider opportunities one might have otherwise dismissed. He saw in me a potential that I was only just beginning to truly grasp. One brisk autumn morning, several months into Senator Davies' term, I received a call that changed the trajectory of my life once again. It was from the White House. My heart leaped into my throat. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, and entirely unexpected. "Ms. Amelia," the voice said, "the president would like to speak with you." I felt a surge of adrenaline. The president?
Why?
My mind raced through possibilities, both exciting and terrifying. I managed to stammer out a polite acceptance, my hand trembling slightly as I hung up the phone. I immediately sought out Senator Davies. He was in his office, poring over a stack of legislative proposals. When I told him about the call, a knowing smile spread across his face. He simply nodded, as if he had been expecting it all along. "Amelia," he said, his voice soft but firm, "this is it. This is what we've been working towards, perhaps even unknowingly. Whatever the president asks, whatever opportunity he presents, you must be open to it. Your moment has arrived." A few days later, I was on a flight to Washington, D.C., my mind buzzing with anticipation. The meeting at the White House was both formal and incredibly personal. The president, a man whose presence commanded respect, greeted me with genuine warmth. He spoke about my work with Senator Davies, my dedication to community service, and my ability to connect with people across political divides. He spoke about the challenges facing the nation, the need for fresh perspectives, for leaders who understood the pulse of everyday America. And then he made his offer. He asked me to consider a senior role in his administration, a position that would place me at the heart of national policymaking, working directly on initiatives that would impact millions of lives. It was an extraordinary proposition, a level of responsibility that both thrilled and humbled me. I listened intently, asking questions, absorbing every detail. It was clear that this was not just a job offer. It was a call to serve, a chance to contribute to something far greater than myself. I returned from Washington with a monumental decision to make. The offer was a dream come true, a culmination of everything I believed in and everything I had worked for. But it also meant leaving behind the immediate work I loved, the close collaboration with Senator Davies, and plunging into an even more intense and demanding environment. I discussed it at length with Liam, who, ever the steadfast friend, offered his unwavering support and pragmatic advice. "Amelia," he said, his voice filled with pride, "this is your destiny. This is what you were meant to do. You have a chance to truly make a difference, to shape the future of this country. Don't let fear hold you back." His words resonated deeply. I knew he was right. This was not just an opportunity, it was a responsibility. I accepted the president's offer. The announcement of my new role sent ripples through the political world, and, of course, through my family. My parents were beside themselves with pride, their initial skepticism replaced by an almost fervent belief in my capabilities. My mother started subscribing to political journals. My father engaged in passionate debates with his friends about policy matters, often citing my own supposed insights. It was a complete reversal, a testament to the transformative power of external validation. Sarah's reaction was more complex. The simmering resentment I had sensed before had now escalated into something akin to overt disbelief, tinged with a desperate attempt to maintain her perceived superiority. She would call me, her voice strained. "So, Amelia, this new role, it's a lot of pressure, isn't it? Are you sure you're ready for all that scrutiny? It's a completely different league, you know." There was a thinly veiled attempt to undermine my confidence, to sow seeds of doubt. But her words bounced off me now, like pebbles against a rock. I was too focused, too driven, too sure of my path to be swayed by her insecurities. My first few months in the new administration were a whirlwind. I quickly adapted to the fast pace, the high stakes, and the intense scrutiny that came with working in the White House. I found myself in meetings with cabinet secretaries, engaging in debates with senior advisors, and helping to craft policies that had a direct impact on national issues. My background in grassroots community work proved to be an invaluable asset, providing a real-world perspective that was often lacking in the hallowed halls of power. I missed the direct, hands-on work with the community, but I found immense satisfaction in knowing that my efforts at this higher level could create systemic change that would ultimately benefit countless individuals. I still made time to visit the community center and the food bank to stay connected to the people and the issues that had shaped my journey. It was a grounding experience, a constant reminder of the purpose that fueled my work. As I settled into my role, I realized something profound. The failure my family had so often attributed to me was not a flaw, but a forging. The quiet observation, the deep empathy, the dedication to genuine service, these were not weaknesses, but strengths that had been cultivated in the very environments my family had deemed insufficient. I hadn't failed. I had simply been on a different path, a path that led me to this unexpected, extraordinary place. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I found myself in a quiet moment, reflecting on the journey. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Amelia," she said, her voice surprisingly subdued, almost hesitant. I just wanted to say, I saw your interview today. You were amazing."
Truly.
"I never thought." Her voice trailed off. There was a pause, a long, uncomfortable silence. I waited, a sense of calm understanding settling over me. This wasn't another attempt to claim credit or to subtly undermine. This was something different. I always thought I had it all figured out, Amelia," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "The perfect career, the right connections, the clear path to success. And you always seemed to be struggling, to be choosing the harder road. I didn't understand it. I didn't see what you were building. I was so caught up in my own definition of success that I completely missed yours." I'm sorry, Amelia. I was wrong about you." The apology hung in the air, a fragile, unexpected gift. It wasn't just words. It was an acknowledgement, a recognition of my journey, a genuine admission of her past misjudgment. A warmth spread through me, a sense of healing. It wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about connection, about understanding. "Thank you, Sarah," I said, my voice soft. "It means a lot to hear you say that." We talked for a long time that night, not about politics or careers, but about life, about our past, about our hopes for the future. It was the most honest conversation we had ever had, a true sisterly bond finally beginning to form, stripped of the layers of competition and preconceived notions. Life in Washington continued its relentless pace, but I felt more grounded, more confident than ever before. My contributions were valued, my voice was heard, and I was making a tangible impact. The words, "Madam Vice President," from Senator Davies, once a bewildering enigma, now echoed in my mind as a powerful whisper of possibility, a constant reminder of the extraordinary journey I was on. The future was uncertain, as it always is, but I knew, with a quiet certainty, that I was exactly where I was meant to be, serving a purpose far greater than I had ever imagined.